Tonight's episode is not sponsored by Shiner Beer. Come join us for Calling All Retro Gamers!
Calling all retro gamers.
Calling all retro gamers!
Calling all retro gamers!
Calling all retro gamers!
What is going on, everyone? Welcome to Calling All Retro Gamers, your bi-weekly source of hanging out with me and Ed, and sometimes a special guest. So, how is everyone doing today?
Good.
Yeah.
Good. Sorry, I was hearing the show and I forgot I had it in another window. My bad. I was like, what is happening? Where am I? What reality is this?
You know
what?
actually,
I ask myself those questions on a daily basis.
That actually wound up happening to another guest, and it was actually me. I forgot that like Twitter will sometimes play an audio if you had the link open. So it was like 4.5 minutes. It was actually Panda Sub 2000. We're just hanging out, and then he's like, "Where is this audio coming from?" The chat's just going like, "What is this?" It's crazy. So, so anyway, let's just get into a little intro and whatever. When we go around the horn, what have we been doing? What have we been doing this week in the world of gaming? Have you been playing anything? You've been, checking anything out? What's going on?
What's gaming? No, of course.
What's gaming?
Of course. Like, I guess so. Other than the usual like Evercade cards, which this channel always bleeds into, but since you asked what I've been playing, so yes, Commodore 64 Collection 2 and Topin Collection 2. But I'll tell you what I've been obsessed playing. A game called Wild Frost. It's on Steam, and I think it's also on Switch as well. It's an indie roguelike card game. It's kind of like sort of like Slay the Spire, but like totally different.
Very cool.
And all that. And I think I've already put like 15 hours into it. Like, I've been playing it too much.
Nice.
Card games to me are dangerous.
Yeah, well, it's speaking of card games being dangerous, I actually loaded up MTG Arena for the first time in like 3 or 4 months. Because I'm trying to gear up before the Lord of the Rings drop happens, because Wizards, they're gonna get me. I'm very afraid, but I'm pretty sure they're just gonna get me. Like you can't mix Magic the Gathering and Lord of the Rings at the same time and not have me spend money. It's just not a thing that happens in life. It is a thing. So so yeah, I loaded that up, and that was pretty fun. This thing looks pretty cool though.
Yeah. I just kind of wanted to show like it's different graphics and art style, and like without going into like too super detail, instead of just kind of like picking just like one main like hero or class and Slay the Spire. You do that, but it's more randomized, and you have other like allies to kind of help you out. So it's the same, but it's not, but it's different, but it's challenging, and you unlock stuff, and it's
nice.
Yeah, I've been too
very cool.
I've been too obsessed. But yeah, Magic, that's the dangerous, because that's one of those games where you could just like, especially on mobile, you'll keep playing it.
Oh yeah, no, it was crazy. And then I was like, well, I haven't played in 3 months, so I'm just basically gonna get destroyed by the first person I play. And apparently they did not expect the goblin attack, so I got him good.
No one ever does.
Yeah, right. I got him real good. They rage quit on me, and I was like, oh, all right. There you go. Guess I still got it. So at least annoy somebody. But all right, so let's go into the chat here. We got Karsten. What's up? What's going on, man?
Oh.
Good to see you. And Chris Westerman's here. How's it going? Fellow Good Times Club member. Chris Westerman, what's up? Brian F is also here. Oh, enjoying the TurboGrafx videos.
Thank you, Brian.
Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah, working on a lot of TurboGrafx stuff lately, because next issue of my magazine's TurboGrafx focus. So I'm
that's cool.
Very up for that.
Nice. So yeah, we're gonna get into talking about all sorts of that stuff in a little bit with our special guest, because actually I want to know a whole bunch more about your journey and how that is, because to be honest, that is a very cool endeavor that you're embarking on, sir. And I think it's really, really cool. So, so let's see what else we got. Do we have anything in the way of like news to speak of? Sometimes we dive into that a little bit here. There isn't anything outside of stuff that I will put out and say, hey, if you're coming here and you want to talk about things that are probably going to be talked about on Saturday, look Saturday. Also, because we don't have any actual way of getting official news. Talking about Blaze Entertainment and the Evercade. There was some news that is in rumor status right now because there's actually no official things, and I found out there's actually a reason why no one from Blaze has actually addressed this at all, and it's because they're all overseas.
That's right. Aren't they in China, like at the factories? I think
they're in some like heavy meetings, logistics, and stuff like that. It might actually have something to do with that. What the heck do they? I'm gonna butcher the name every time. Is it Hyper Megatech? Is that what they?
I think so. Yeah.
Is that what they're calling it? Their new Blaze's new venture, where they're going to be making new products that are not called Evercade, and maybe not even video games. So I got really excited though when they started talking about the board game stuff. Actually, it kind of leads me into like some stuff. Speaking of board games, because we do talk about those here on Calling All Retro Gamers. I did get my my Kickstarter copy of this game right here called Be Hexed. It's a pretty cool game. It's a deck building game that is actually written and developed by two people that I know from way back when I used to go to gaming conventions and interview folk. A gentleman by the name of Jonathan Lavallee and another one by the name of Kurt Covert from Smirking Dagger Games. This one was a Kickstarter. It was about this time last year, I think, where they actually put out the Kickstarter. And like everything else in everywhere, the logistics ate them alive, and they were supposed to put it out in October and then maybe November. And well, I got it 4 or 5 days ago. So we all know how that goes. But it looks really, really cool, and I can't wait to like dig in and play. Right after I shot, I did a box opening on Sunday on the channel. I shot it with my brother-in-law, and right after that, we were both like, "Oh, sweet, we should get into that." And then we pulled out the manual, and we're like, "Oh, well, I mean, it's 8:00, and it's probably going to take us an hour to read this entire manual. So maybe we'll do this next time." So that's probably this Sunday's project is playing that one. So I'm really excited though, because I love me a good deck building game. Because
that was a fun video, and the quality and presentation, how everything was packaged was just amazing.
Yeah,
they did a really good job on that.
Very impressive, and the artist that they got is just it's an independent artist, and she did a fantastic job on all the artwork. It's really, really cool. So. God,
don't even, there's our topic. No,
yeah, sometimes. Actually, there's been some rumbling. Speaking of waiting for things for pre-orders outside of limited run. Actually, I've got a confession to make. I've never once bought anything from limited run games. Not one thing. Zero. So
dude, me neither.
So I don't know like how why, if it's bad or not, or whatever. I mean, if Pete was here, he'd be dropping hammers all over the place. Well, he doesn't like those guys at all.
That's what he said. Watch the Dick and Limited Runs documentary. It's called like Why Limited Run Game Sucks, and it's
yeah.
And
I mean,
they kind
I wonder if that's a positive documentary or a negative documentary.
Well, the whole thing is they're trying to here's the whole shtick, right? And I'll use Evercade as an example. Like, put it this way, Evercade isn't saying, "Hey, we're putting out these games just for the sole purpose of video game preservation." Evercade is like, "Hey, we want you to experience retro again in an affordable format with actual like hard copies and all that. Limited games, they're trying to push that whole thing of, you're contributing to video game preservation and all that." It's like, really? It's like, anybody knows everything gets dumped on the internet as a ROM or something eventually. So it's like, stop it. And then if you don't even talk with the customer service, and it's kind of like they they overdo it, right? Every like little game, every little thing, they have a physical release, and they keep feeding into those people who have to collect everything, and that's kind of the sad thing. They kind of take advantage of that, and then you have some games that there's updates afterwards, so having the physical thing doesn't even matter, like with a lot of CD games. So yeah.
So
that's the short version. But
so in other like news and maybe rumors, speculations, that kind of thing, I've been staring at the shipping news thread in the Polymega official Discord. So I've been waiting for mine for a very, very, very long time.
I remember Polymega. Back
They were
in
gonna
my
put out-
day,
Yeah, they said they were going to put out a thing, and then
it was called Roblox, I believe. What was it called? Not Roblox. What was it called? Something else before they called it Polymega.
oh, I don't remember.
oh yeah.
Yeah, I know that it was called something else.
I can't remember.
So,
It's
what's
been
so
funny about
long.
that?
Yeah,
I was gonna say because Pete, he put in like the very first, like he was waiting a few years, and I feel like he
yeah, he
had
was
to
on
wait a
the
long.
original. It was either indie or Kickstarter or whatever it was.
Yeah,
Yeah, he was one of the original backers.
yeah, and I feel like he waited forever, and then you're still waiting, and
Oh,
then
yeah.
Retro
I mean,
Blocks.
yeah.
Retro Blocks.
Retro Blocks. That's right. Yeah.
Sorry.
I mean,
sorry.
what a it's a wild idea. And I mean, now that I've been waiting so long, I've been hanging out in this Discord. There's like one of the engineers just hanging out in the Discord. He'll talk to anyone. He's a really cool dude. And and I feel for him because he fields all sorts of nonsense on a daily
Well,
basis.
they had a lot of controversy. I mean,
Oh yeah, no, there's not a like that's yes.
you
Yeah,
remember they had this has gone on for so long that it's hard to remember all this stuff, but there was some issues with emulators that may or may not have supposed to have been in Polymega, and
Yeah.
originally it was supposed to be FPGA, and then that didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they had this thing called what did they call it? It was like a new kind of emulation. They had come hybrid emulation or something.
yeah.
Yeah.
This has been going on for a while.
Yeah, absolutely.
This
Um,
Polymega has been on longer than Game of Thrones was.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah.
I believe you might be correct here.
So you know what? What's interesting to think about that? I'm sure there's a universe or a parallel dimension in that Polymega actually came out like earlier.
Yeah.
It actually came out before Evercade.
Yeah.
And because it did, that our channels were changed forever. No, but
That's right, yeah.
and the only reason I say that because really I think my whole thing with the Polymega is kind of like the timing and the cost.
Mhm.
Like had it come out sooner and had it been a little bit a little bit cheaper, then it might have been a whole other thing. Especially because before like prices of like retro games and everything just went insane.
Yeah. Absolutely.
You're
Because I
right.
think
It was if it had come out, what do you think? Maybe like 2 years sooner, you think?
Yeah, I
What do
think
you-
I think that's about right. Because at least for the base unit owners, the whole thing is about the discs, right? And those CDs were starting to get a little pricey back then, but they weren't like astronomical yet. And now it's, good luck. Unless you already have a collection of stuff that you want to play and you just don't want to play it on that older hardware or want to preserve your discs because they're also worth like huge amounts of money, then that's where it's at, right? Or if you're me, and they are really friendly to the import retro scene. You're going to use this as basically this is my giant repository of games that I'm going to then import from Japan. Have this device go through the database that they already have that has all these monster patches for English translation, and then now I get to play all these games that I never would have been able to play before. That's my ticket, for Polymega. That's really what I'm going to do first.
You know what you should do if it's in the store? You know what you should do, Rich? If you were planning on getting like one of the Famicom or Super Famicom modules, like you should Kid Shoryuken now goes by Mad Panic Gaming. You should sign up for his patron because that's
yeah?
he goes and he does, he lives in Japan, he does that shopping for Japanese retro games.
Oh, that's cool.
And like, yeah, I think it's like the cheapest one. I think, don't quote me, when I checked it a while back, it was like $30 a month. But like, you can get like just the loose carts like for like Famicom for like $5-10.
Yeah, really good price.
I mean, would he just send it to you or something?
Yeah. Check out his Patreon. There's different
awesome.
levels. You can do it once a month or once a quarter, and you tell him what you want. Now it's Saturn games and Sega CD and all that, like Saturn games, they're kind of like through the roof, but some of
Well, yeah, I mean,
that's what he does. You tell him basically you can just say, hey, I want Famicom games, I want Super, and then he'll choose for you, or you can say, hey, I'm looking for these certain games.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, that would be kind of cool. I might actually want to check that out. Because,
yeah.
Getting back into it, I'll tell you this: what a difference a year makes. Because as some might remember from back in the day in the channel, I had these 3 games in my hand.
Yeah.
Already once, lost them, and now they're back. Right. Well, when I bought these again in 2022, shortly after I actually started getting news that the Polymega stuff was actually happening, the price went up by almost $10 a disc. And that was from the previous year. And it was a pretty decent sized spike, and I still got a deal on mine. There was one listing for Magic School Lunar that was just that one. It was I guess maybe a better CD case or something like that. And it sold for the price I got all 3 of these games for. Wow. And I was like, wow, that's crazy. It's crazy times.
Yeah. Well, luckily emulation exists because there's some of those games that would be out of our reach. So that's kind of a weird world that we live in right now. Like if you want the physical copies, you've got to pay up for stuff for original.
Yeah. For sure. Or
you can do what I do and just burn all these things.
Yes.
Funny, you know what? Funny that you mentioned that, because, and I may have talked about this, but like when the Dreamcast came out and they're coming out tons of games, I do admit, like an IRC, I was downloading and I was playing burned games, especially when you didn't even have to. But the bad thing about it though is that, because I've had 2 Dreamcasts die on me, like back in the day, but it does. I think at least I know on some systems it puts a strain on the laser. So maybe
it can if the laser. It depends on how the laser is tuned. If like my PlayStation will not read burn discs at all because it's tuned to read at that lower level. But like my Duo, my different consoles that I have, Saturn, I've never had problems. So it just depends. And Dreamcast, that's a funny one because those discs were gigabyte discs. So they're the laser not the laser itself, but the motor moving that thing back and forth is going to give you trouble with the burn disc because those discs are not technically supposed to burn as like you're having to overburn those things sometimes.
Yeah,
right.
It's not good.
It's not friendly. Actually, I had an experience doing that on a Ubuntu DVD this afternoon.
Oh,
where I got the latest build. It won't fit on a 4.7 gig disc.
Damn.
It's like, oh yeah,
really?
It's missing. It's like off by like 65 meg, and it's like, do you want to overburn? I'm like, well, it's only 65 meg. Still filled. Worked. It booted, but the rest of the burn, whatever was on that last part of the disc, I don't know. I don't have it on the disc, so it's not there.
That's amazing that it doesn't. I'm surprised it would be that big because you could just download. Maybe you know what I think. I guess that's if you want the full version on DVD, because I know like most Linux distros, you can download the minimal versions and then it just pulls all that.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, I was asking myself, I was like, why is the OS that big? But yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Yeah, and all I needed it for was to boot it into an environment so I could look at a hard drive to see if the data had failed. Because Windows refused to see a partition, and I'm like, get out of here. There's no way that the data is gone. I was just using the drive a day and a half ago. The rest of the drive is healthy, and Windows sees it as healthy. I'm like, no way. That's not even a thing. I booted it.
Recovery.
All the data was there. It was all there.
Oh, okay.
So I was able to get it back, which is good because it wasn't my drive. So
Can I ask you a question, Rich?
Yeah.
Talking about recovery, you mentioned you lost those discs earlier, and I wanted to ask you, how have things recovered from your flood and everything that happened with all that?
I mean, it was pretty like as far as the house goes. I mean, we're here still, so that's good. And everyone's healthy and all that kind of stuff. And we replaced all of the primary things that make the house function. Obviously, when you get 8.5 feet of water in your house, everything goes. So you're
how did you get 8.5? Like, back up for just a second. How did you get 8.5 feet of water in your house? Like, what happened?
Well, we had a basement.
It was like the pipes bust or something, or
no, the river came into.
The river came in.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
our town is surrounded by two rivers, one called the Raritan and one called the Millstone. And when a big storm happens and it dumps a lot of water to the north, all that water comes down south and it fills up the basin. And well, our town is the basin, so if you live close enough, you'll get it. And we basically become in a bad storm. Sometimes we become lakefront property where our stuff's fine, but like 2 blocks away, it's down the entire street, right? But this one was something else. There's more water than I think I've ever seen. And I lived here pretty much almost my entire life, besides like a 10-year jaunt, between a couple different places. But in that time, there's been 3 major storms that have dumped water there, and nothing ever compared to this one, which was wild. Which is also the reason why there was so much water, because the river really came in from the front of the house through the back into my backyard and into my garage. So I had stuff stored out there, and all that stuff got wet. They had both cars, all that stuff. But yeah, no, it's we do what we can, right?
How long did it take you to get all that water out of there? Like,
day and a half.
A day and a half, and then
just straight pumping. Day and a half.
Wow. And then you had, I'm sure you had like, water in like the walls and everything. Like,
yeah,
I can't even imagine.
It was pretty brutal. The one saving grace is the fact that our basement was so big that it became a basin. And although it hit the subfloor, it didn't go past the subfloor on the first floor. So everything on the first floor and the second floor and our loft, that was all fine. Other than the fact that we couldn't use it for like a month or whatever, because you got to have inspections and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it was a thing. It was a thing. But yeah, as far as like the collections, it's a big question mark. So out of the entire room, which was a giant studio that had all my gear and like that kind of stuff, 3 or 4 bins of things came out of that I just couldn't let go of. I just couldn't. And although I probably lost most of the stuff that's in those bins, I just wanted to try to find out. So very recently, I began a little bit of like a docu-series where I'm taking stuff that was actually in that either in the garage or downstairs, and kind of trying to clean it up to see if if I can get stuff to work again. And just as a timely little self plug, I guess, the first episode of that series for all members, because it was exclusive to channel members for this entire week, it actually goes live tomorrow. So,
did you end up calling it Rich's Restorations?
I did. It's Retro Rich's Restorations is the name of the show.
Yes.
Very nice. Very nice.
Yeah.
So yeah, and the first episode I think is really cool, and I think it's like technologically, I think it's an unbelievable story. That something could be in there for that long, that submerged, and well, you'll find out what happens. You'll find out what happens tomorrow. But yeah, and I actually filmed another one this afternoon for next week. And I will tell you this. It's going to be the most honest takes of trying to get things to work, because it is literally a dice roll. Sometimes you win and sometimes you do not. And I'm just going to show everybody all of it, because I figured, hey, it's a fun journey, right?
Yeah.
Is it a lot of
Well, it's
damn it?
yeah, I mean, it's even deeper than that.
Just kidding.
I don't want to spoil things for next week, but
Okay.
I had to open a cart today, because I tried a game. I had to open the cart, and I I could not believe what I saw when I peeled the.
Ooh.
I was like, I can't.
I'm very curious. I may have to become a member just so I can see this video.
I mean, it's wild, man. It's wild.
Wow.
So, but anyway, speaking of members and channels and all sorts of fun stuff, since we're 26 minutes into this podcast, let's introduce
Oh yeah,
our special guest, Super Mega Grafx 64.
woohoo!
Thank you.
So yeah. So let's, I'm gonna give you the floor for a little bit. Tell us a little bit about your channel, your journey, and all that kind of stuff.
It all began on a cold winter night, 1973. No, I do. I have a channel. It's called Super Mega Grafx 64. That's not my name. That's the name of the channel. It's funny sometimes when people will be like, "Oh, it's Super Mega Grafx 64." I'm like, "No, it's Cyrus." Yeah, been around for a little while. You guys watching, you might know me from other things. This is a channel that I started up, I don't know, maybe a little over a year and a half ago, something like that. And things just started going really well, and I'm very happy with how it's going. It's all focused on games. It's not focused on me, not really. I don't do any webcam on it at all. It's just me talking and video game stuff. And I talk about my opinions and relationships with video games, but it's all about the games.
Nice.
And it's been good. It's been good. People have been cool. I have, I've had a good time doing the channel, and, just try to keep things drama free and just, having a good time.
Is this you?
Yes. Well, it's my channel. It's not me.
Yeah. You know what? There we go. See, I just subscribed.
Nice.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. I appreciate it.
That's pretty.
Cool. Super Mega Grafx 64. Oh, thank you, sir. Super Mega Grafx 64 is a conglomeration of Super Nintendo, Mega Drive, TurboGrafx, and of course, you have to throw on 64.
Nice.
It's just
That's
all
awesome.
about games. I also started Super Mega Grafx 64 is not just a YouTube channel; it's also a magazine.
Yes.
And I've produced 2 issues so far. I'm working on the 3rd one. It's a retro themed magazine. It's a physical magazine that people can buy if they want to. Members on my channel, like you were talking about a second ago, I give them the digital version for free as part of that membership. Because it's hard sometimes. I struggled with the idea of having memberships, because I was like, I don't know about this membership thing, and I don't know. And I was like, if I'm gonna do it, I want to give people something. So that's the best thing I could think of to do.
That's awesome.
Well, I appreciate it, and it's a lot of work doing a magazine, but you know what, man, I love magazines. I love physical retro gaming magazines. I used to spend just hours going through archive.org reading, GamePro, EGM, Video Games, Computer Entertainment, Nintendo Power, whatever. And I would just go through and just read them. And I love the articles. I love the old commercials, the old ads they would run in the magazines. It's fun stuff. And I was like, you know what? I want to do that. So
Did you say people can also get a physical copy? Like, can they print it off of Amazon or?
You could print the digital one if you want, but you can buy the physical copy from my publisher. There's a link on my channel that'll take you straight to it. It's on the top of the channel. My publisher, it's called Lulu, and if you go there, they have it for you to where you can buy it. You can order it from them. They'll mail it to you. Comes in a nice firm cardboard box little
Oh,
thing.
that's cool. Nice.
So yeah, it's kind of expensive, which I don't like, but I've got the price down as much as I possibly can. I really don't even make money on the magazine. It's not like
Sure.
it's like $1 or something that I make on each copy I sell.
Yeah.
So, but unfortunately, it is a little more expensive than I prefer. But it's a magazine, you know. It is what it is.
I think I found it. The only reason I was saying Amazon because I know like there's some other Evercade fan. Well, they do the same. You know, they do the same thing. You can get anything printed. Okay, I think I found it here.
Oh, see, I don't know. Like, I don't have. I don't go around too many places and look at other things, so I don't know everything that's going on. You guys have talked about a lot of stuff already, where I've been kind of like, oh, okay, I don't know about all this stuff.
So this is you, right? You can go here and you can get your. There we go.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
That's really
I like the artwork.
That's really really neat. Yeah. You just recently did a kind of a reveal on your channel for the second issue, right?
Yes, sir.
And you were going through all the different pages and stuff, and you were mentioning things like the advertisements and stuff, and even in your magazine, there's like like either callbacks or kind of old school advertisement pages, and I'm like, that's awesome. I really dig the presentation.
I appreciate that. You know, I was like, I'm not going to do a retro magazine without throwing in retro ads for games.
Yeah.
I'm like, I have to do that. So it's been fun. You know, I appreciate it. And if it's the only thing I'm trying to do with this magazine is just contribute something positive, something interesting, something fun to retro gaming. And if anybody, you know, I don't know, it's not like it's a big thing, but if anybody gets it and enjoys it, then that's what I'm trying to do. Just share a little bit of my take on things and my appreciation for this hobby that we have. You know, it's been really nice.
I love that Mince McVaughn instead of Vince McMahon. That's great.
Hey, how's it going?
Welcome.
Hey, what's up, Luke?
Link's Awakening.
Yeah, what's going on?
I love that. The Link's Awakening.
That's very cool.
Luke's
very
a good
cool.
guy.
Yeah, Luke's awesome. If I'm trying to see if I can get there. I'm gonna try to see if I can get there without falling over. But speaking of magazines, Ed mentioned the Evercade Fans Hub, which is a group in on Facebook. They're a whole bunch of guys from the UK. They're all big Evercade fans, and they got together. A whole bunch of them got together and they actually created a fanzine.
Nice.
That they put out issues for. If I can get there.
Yeah, and that's what. Yeah, they were saying like they don't really make much money off of it either because you want to make it so people can get it, and I think that's awesome doing it for the love of the hobby, just making it accessible for those who want a physical copy and digital. You know, that's awesome.
Oh, that's cool. Look at that.
Yeah.
That's really
so
nice.
And then they have and it's just like interviews and stuff, and they have like different pages and like kind of thing. They put in their own little their own little advertisements, and then it's like these are this one was an interview page that had little screenshots about the collection that was about to come out. This is back from I think this was this is issue 4. I think it was like November of last year or something like that. And then they call out people for their YouTube channels that are part of the community. They put up their videos on the Facebook group. So they put on there. Yeah, it's all pretty neat. It's neat stuff. Like there is an audience for that. Is really kind of what I'm getting at. Like there's not just for Evercade stuff, but I would love magazines. I've got Retro Gamers, like current Retro Gamer magazine. Yeah, I've got stacks of them over here. Because I got into a really awesome deal on one of those like holiday specials. Hey, get a year of Retro Gamer for like $20 or something, and I'm like, yes,
nice,
yes. So but I'm into all that kind of stuff. So wouldn't be surprised if some of your issues wound up on these shelves very soon.
No pressure. No pressure.
That'd be cool. I just, you know what? I just like it. And
You want me to
even
go? I got copies. I'll go grab them if you want me to.
yeah, I mean, yeah.
Sure,
if you want to,
okay.
you want to show some stuff off, that'd be awesome, man.
All right, give me just a second. Let me go get it.
Yeah, no worries. Cool. So
Insert Jeopardy music here.
nice. I wish someone would do the N64 magazine. That'd be kind of cool. Well, I think Sai was doing his different things for different systems, right? This past one that he just did was all Sega. The next one's going to be Turbo Graphics, so you wouldn't, maybe, maybe not. Maybe that'll happen. There you go.
Nice.
That's
wait,
the two that I have out right now.
Yeah, very
And,
cool.
The first, I'll tell you what I'm doing for this year. They're quarterly, so there's 4 coming out for the year. And look at how much detail I can get you on this.
Nice.
But the first one talks about the launch of the 16-bit consoles.
Mhm.
And
we can
of
actually
course,
see
I
it.
include TurboGrafx in that. I don't want to. I will hear no dissent. It is 16-bit. But like the first issue is about the launch of the 16-bit consoles and has information. Here's like one of those retro ads.
Oh, that's cool.
Oh, very cool.
That's really cool.
Nice.
So it's got all like the launch titles for each of the consoles, and then there's like articles talking about like what happened and stuff like that.
Very cool.
So that's the first issue. The second issue is all about Sega. So what I'm doing, the next issue is the TurboGrafx issue, and then the next issue, if you can guess, is going to be the Nintendo issue, because that's the first issue was the launch of the 3 big ones. So so all the next 3 issues are each one devoted to each company, and then it sort of completes the 4 together. And once I get them all done, I'll put them all together in one big book and have that available too.
That's neat. Yeah.
Are you going to be? So you're going down the timeline. So at some point, I'd imagine you'll probably get to SNK, like Neo Geo.
Well, it's not really so much like my magazines are not supposed to be like necessarily chronological or even like historical, so much as it's like just this magazine is a celebration of this thing. And
okay.
So so the first issue is just talking about the launch of these consoles and what it was all about and how I felt about it and what I thought and all this kind of stuff. The second issue is all about Sega, all the different consoles that were put out, by Sega, and arcade stuff, and articles about the systems, and of course more retro commercials for fun stuff.
Nice, Sewer Shark. Nice.
But it's not a history lesson. It's just fun stuff, arcade stuff, just talking about all the great things about Sega that I love. I even put like the new movie.
Oh, that's cool.
Neat. A little bit. So it's just like, oh, Sega, love Sega, all the stuff about Sega, their good times and some of their bad times. And so TurboGrafx, this issue that I'm working on now is probably going to be a little bigger because it's my favorite console. So I have a lot to contribute to that.
Nice.
And then I'll do the Nintendo one, and then like I said, they're all sort of come together as one big thing. So
That's actually a good segue. Why don't you tell us why the TurboGrafx is your favorite console and kind of what it means to you and all that good stuff?
Because it's the best. No.
Okay, end of podcast. Drop the mic.
I have a special affinity for that console. It was a console nobody cared about but me. Nobody that I knew had one. Nobody that I knew anything about it. You couldn't buy it anywhere near where I lived. I discovered it, and I discovered all these games that I was like, holy crap, these games are great. And I would like start showing them to my friends, and my friends would be like, oh, wow, I never knew about this. And then I would just, show them And then the CD games came out, and it was like, I mean, let's just be honest, like you can't even compare TurboGrafx CD and Sega CD. Sega CD, there's some good stuff there. I'm not saying there's not, but come on. I mean, the library for that is amazing. And I still discover new things. I still find new games or hacks or translations. I still find stuff that blows my mind for the PC Engine, for the TurboGrafx. It's just, I love it. I love everything about it. The sound, the music, the graphics, the speed of the games. It's like the Super Nintendo before there was a Super Nintendo, you know? Because, I mean, it's the same type of controller, but with turbo, the graphics are very similar. It's Hudson Soft. I mean, the JRPGs, the shooters, the shoot 'em ups.
Yes.
It's just a phenomenal console. And, you know, the Dracula X, Lords of Thunder. I mean, there's so many games that are just like the best ever. And so yeah, it's my favorite because it's kind of weird also. You know, you have to have like, you know, these cards. You know, I was going to take my card out of my TurboGrafx while it's running. That's probably not a good idea.
No, do that.
Here we go. I'll take the one out of the Duo. You got to have these freaking cards to play these damn. This is an arcade system card. Like, people don't even know what that is. Like, what are you talking about? It's like, yeah, I know, it's weird. I love it.
Yeah.
It's strange.
So that's also my connection to TurboGrafx is funny. On a comment that you said I want to touch on when you said it was the system that nobody owned, right? So I can remember being a kid, and also actually kind of ties in, to the Gamer magazine. So I think if everybody remembers, like the very last page, you could they would show all these other consoles like TurboGrafx, and you could trade in kind of way before eBay or anything else. It was kind of like a little bit sketchy, but it's like you could send in any retro thing and they would tell you like what they would give you. And I remember me and my friends were always like tempted, let's sell our stuff and get TurboGrafx. And yeah, it was one of those systems that like always really wanted, but it was never anywhere. And the only time I got to I did actually to play one is like usually every school or somebody's always like some rich kid who wants to show off. Well, he had a TurboGrafx Express. He was the kind of kid that like before Super Mario Express. Before Super Mario Brothers 3 was available, like in the United States, he had like the Japanese version. Like he had to import. And I remember he brought it to school like with Monster Layer, and I remember I got to actually touch it and play it for 10 minutes. But that's the only experience. So fast forward to like mid 90s, whenever you could do emulation, and that was like one of the first consoles I sought out to emulate, and that was kind of my first experience to play it because you couldn't get it anywhere. And now prices are insane. But yeah, there's something special like with the art style and all that, and of course it took off in Japan, which is interesting because like in Japan they loved like their shoot 'em ups, they loved their arcade type games, but here like we didn't, in the United States we didn't as much. So yeah, different audiences, but that's
I find myself, I think I was supposed to be from Japan. I know that's a weird, everybody loves Japan and it's like a whatever, but like they love the PC Engine. I love the PC. They love the Sega Saturn. I love the Sega Saturn. Like it seems like the consoles I like the best are the ones the Japanese were nuts over. And we kind of just were like, meh. And I'm like, come on, guys, come on. Of course, nobody likes the Jaguar but me.
Oh, hey, Show Me Retro. Glad you found us on our secondary channel. And you could be a guest here too, like Cyrus.
That's right.
He's been elusive. No pressure though, but we always like to have
one of us.
Yes, but one of us. But yeah, same with like the Sega Saturn. So what's interesting with both the Saturn and the TurboGrafx is there's the US library, and then there's like the whole like I want to say even more so than some other consoles where there was like literally like double the amount of games I know for TurboGrafx got over there. And if you want to try to get anything here in the United States TurboGrafx, it's higher than hell. Like it's twice.
Forget about it.
Yeah.
Forget about it. It's not going to happen. Like, man, okay, so I actually owned 2 different American Turbo Duos. I had a Turbo Duo when it first launched, and then I ended up selling it a couple of years later like an idiot. And then I bought another Turbo Duo when I was in college, which was a few years later. And I had that one for a long time, and I sold it to like an idiot because that's who I am. But that console, like if you want to buy the American Turbo Duo, the black one, that thing is insanely, stupidly expensive. Like, there's no reason to do that. When I bought another Duo, I bought the PC Engine, the Duo RX. I bought the white one, and I never wanted it because it was white, and I was like, I don't want color's kind of weird, you know. I want the. But when I found out that that's the one you really should buy because it was the last one produced and it has the best like laser and the best equipment in it, I was like, oh, okay, well, I guess I'll buy that one.
Well, the other issue, and I'm sure you're aware of this, viewers are, especially like the TurboGrafx Express and the Duos, like the caps that were put on those were cheap. You know, like Game Gear falls into that. So it's like if you buy any one of those, it's like you better like recap it or it's going to have a tragic.
That is no joke, dude. Like the TurboGrafx especially is notorious, and the Game Gear, those two are like notorious for like bad caps. Thankfully, the TurboGrafx I have, the guy I bought it from, because this is not my original TurboGrafx. This one was recapped and actually had a gear replacement on the CD thing because the gears will break on those old. I mean, those things are old. They came out in '89, so yeah, they're pretty old. But no problems so far with my Turbo Duo. It's been absolutely immaculate ever since I got it. The PC Engine Duo that I got, it's really good. But yeah, unfortunately, if you're gonna go the route of original hardware, you got to be careful because you can really get yourself into a bad situation. I got a Super Famicom that has bad caps, and you'll like when I turn it on, it'll be fine for about 5 minutes, and then these weird wavy lines will start to come on the screen, and it's because the capacitors have a problem. I bought another one; it does not have that problem. Thank God. Actually, that one was recapped. The second one that I bought, but the good thing about Super Famicom is it's cheap. You get a Super Famicom for like $60. Like, you know, you ain't getting one of these things for like $60. That's a different type of situation. But I was gonna, since we're talking about the TurboGrafx, we were talking about the Polymega earlier. I wanted to ask you guys, a subject had come up in my Discord. We've been talking about sorry, go ahead.
What's up, Nick?
Oh, what's up, dude? Nick in the house. We've been talking about the Analog Duo. Do you guys know about the Analog Duo?
Yeah.
What is going on? Have you heard anything about this thing? What is going on?
What I suspect is it was about before the Analog Pocket. For those of people who don't know, it's supposed to be an FPGA TurboGrafx console. And what I suspect is that that's either be put on hold or it may not come out because of the Analog Pocket. And I suspect that they really want to push those modules now that are like $100 for like three that they've gotten way expensive. So
yeah,
I think we can do a whole other thing on Analog, but I think they're probably going to wait until they sell out of those, and then they may bring that back. But I suspect because it's like they want people to buy the add-on for the Pocket, and they want you to get the Pocket, even though you can't really get it. You know what I mean? Like, or if you want to wait a long time.
The Analog Duo was like a dream come true. I mean, this thing was like supposed to be $200, which that's probably not going to happen.
Right.
And then it was going to do the CDs and the cards, and it was going to put output for analog TVs and HDMI, and it would support regular controls, and it had a headphone jack with the. I was like, "There's no way! It's too perfect."
I mean, I forget what it's called, but I know, like, I think it's on Castlemania Games. You can get that FPGA that you can plug in to the PC Engine where it'll output like HDMI, and you can play.
I know.
You can play all the ROM. So if you like want to, I guess but I mean that thing by itself, I think is like $300.
Yeah.
And plus you have to have the console. But like if you want like a lesser expensive way to do that, but to your point, if you actually want to play like original like discs and games. Then that's the only thing that would have existed. Oh, one thing real quick, which I was kind of funny that you mentioned about comparing the TurboGrafx to Sega CD, which the hugest difference, and like we all remember this, like we all love Sega, right? But you would expect like if there was a game that like existed on, let's say like the Genesis, and they ported it to Sega CD, like you would think the graphics would be better. Nope, just the like if you had the Olympians, they maybe did something, you know, it'd be better. And they did, like, don't get me wrong, I love Sewer Shark. My friend had one. I enjoyed Ground Zero Texas, but they're like a lot of these gimmicky, just like movie kind of games. Like they were testing the water, like, you know, like Sega was being like lazy for a lack of a better thing. That's why we all love Sega, but they're kind of throwing that out there, and then they.
Well, what's so stupid about it is the Sega CD had all this extra processing in it that it could do. It could do hardware scaling and rotation. The thing had huge capabilities. I think it had a processor that was like 12 megahertz or something. Like, and if they wanted to, if they actually were inclined to use the Sega CD properly, which they did in a few games, I mean, it's like a 32X already, basically, with the power that thing had. It was really disappointing because, like you're saying, so many Sega CD games was just the cartridge game with CD music.
Yep, like Batman was one of them. But yeah, so it's, and the problem, if you watch various documentaries, the biggest downfall of Sega was like the Japanese company was always arguing like with the U.S. company, and they just, you know,
Nick will tell you all about that. Nick, like he can tell you, he's got a good video about that a while back. He talks about all that stuff. Very fascinating history.
Yeah, but to your point, like the TurboGrafx, like it was a real system. Like when you saw the CD, you got the, you know, it wasn't just the set. You actually got like the upgraded graphics, and that, like their MFVs were cooler. Like they're like little animes kind of before the. You know, like it's what you would expect from a real CD system, not just, hey, here's kind of like Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch or whatever like that.
Well, it was the attitude with Turbo Technologies, Hudson Soft, was the CD was their premier platform, and the Hue cards and the turbo chips sort of fell to the wayside. So it became like, this is our focus. Whereas with Sega, it was the opposite. It was like, cartridges is our bread and butter, and we'll do the CD stuff. It's sort of experimentation land. We're gonna have fun with crazy, wild, like you said, Marky Mark and crisscross, make you jump.
Yeah.
But they didn't make the customers jump to the registers.
Right? Ooh, good word. Yeah, it was crazy. Well, then you know when you watch, it's so sad, like how Nintendo just like muscled out all these other companies, and Sega was really the only one to kind of survive and hang in there. And you know,
man, and what an interesting time, because you know Nintendo was this like iron-fisted juggernaut that was like ruling the gaming landscape, and people were like, hey, can we get an upgrade? We'll give you an upgrade when we're ready. And it's like, okay, right? Sorry. And then Sega comes in and actually not only challenges Nintendo, but for a brief period of time beats Nintendo. And then it was like, oh, that can happen? People, because nobody thought it could, like all the developers and publishers were basically just like, you know, holding up their bowl for a little more gruel from Nintendo. And when it became obvious that Nintendo needed to change their ways and become a little bit better about how they dealt, I mean, Nintendo was legendary for suing everyone. They sued everybody, ran people out of the business. They were, you know, cutthroat. And when Sega, well, yes, but when Sega challenged them, they had to adjust some of what they were doing for a while. Anyway, but Nintendo is Nintendo, and they'll always be Nintendo. Will see Sega went away because Sega made a ton of mistakes and a ton of bad decisions, and like you said, the fighting was ridiculous. I mean, that's what you can't run a company like that. That was insane. And Turbo Technologies, NEC, Hudson, that was doomed from the beginning. They had a terrible contract between the two, and it was they didn't know how to market what they had. But Nintendo is, you know, it's not that, and Nintendo's great at marketing, but what Nintendo's best at is actually making good games. And they put them out, and they're not like other people's games. They're like their own thing. So they have a product, and they keep putting out that product, and people love that product, so they'll keep buying it. You know, and that's why there's the Switch tax that we all talk about and all this sort of thing, because people want what they're selling, you know.
Oh. Speaking, by the way, Cyrus, just to let everyone know, your magazines contain no Nintendo advertising at all. There's none. There's no Nintendo advertising in there because we don't need their focus.
There's not any Nintendo advertising.
No.
There's nothing.
I guess I should say that, right? Like that. Nothing that I do is endorsed or sponsored, or I'm not shilling anything. It's all old retro stuff.
Right.
And please, Nintendo, leave me alone.
right.
But yeah, it's just interesting how things played out over time. You know, Sega hung in there as long as they could, and then they've done pretty decently as a third party. You know, releasing games that way. Thankfully, they saved their company, and they had to make a lot of different decisions in order to do that.
Yes,
but
and the founder, who I can't remember his name, who initially owned it, like he was the one to bail them out, or he paid off other debts, which was like something insane. So at least
I remember Nick can probably tell you more about that, but I think I remember like on his deathbed or something, right?
Yes,
like
yes, exactly.
It's a pretty interesting story.
Yeah, that's why I like the old Nintendo. So you know, that's
the old Nintendo. How old do you want to go back? Because that's not like I keep going back to Nick. Nick's got some.
So this is gonna be like. I've never played a 3DS or 2DS. I've owned a Wii. Yeah, I've owned a Wii, a GameCube, and this would be my opinion. Like a Super Nintendo was like their last best console that they made. You know, that's the kind of my
hot take.
Yeah,
that's a hot take.
That's not poor. I mean, you can see like I'm a as Pete says, I'm a Steam Deck man. No, versus compared to Switch.
That's okay. I mean, back in the day, I can remember my friends. We would walk around town. We'd goof around, go check out the video games at the local restaurants and convenience stores, and look at the comic books and stuff. But we would talk about our thoughts about like what would be the perfect video game console, and we always said we thought the perfect console, this was a long time ago obviously, would have been a portable Super Nintendo. We thought that would have been the perfect console. And
that is kind of cool.
Yeah, all the RPGs and
I mean, because it was like, I mean, the music, the sound effects, the graphics, it could do stuff. It was just Super Nintendo, Super Famicom, beautiful console. That's one of the only cartridge collections I have left. I've sold most of my cartridge collections, but I have quite a few Super Famicom and Super Nintendo cartridges because I just love those carts. Those are awesome cartridges. And the games, man, Super Nintendo games, Genesis, don't get me wrong, love Genesis games, great stuff. But man, the RPGs on the Super Nintendo, there's so many awesome games on Super Nintendo with the Mode 7 stuff and the FX games, and there's just so many awesome and the Mario games. What are you going to do? I mean, Super Mario World. I mean, good luck competing with Super Mario World. It's an amazing system.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh, look who finally decided to show. Hey, Even Hobbies.
Hey, what's up, dude? What's going on, man?
But yeah, see, that was the thing with Super Nintendo. Like every Christmas around that time, they'd come out with a new new RPG, whether it was a Final Fantasy or Chrono Trigger. To me, my friends would get that maybe one or two of them a year. And for me, the whole reason I got a Super Nintendo was because of Street Fighter 2.
Oh,
it was because
absolutely,
of that. Yeah. It was because of that. It was because of that port. Matter of fact, when I sold like Ninja Turtles, old figures, Nintendo, I got it just for that. And then even like with the Mortal Kombats that came out. And what's interesting when you look at stuff is I always felt when there was an arcade port most of the time, Nintendo would do that right. Like even though Mortal Kombat, it didn't have the blood. The fatalities were still violent. Like the one like for Sub-Zero, like how he explodes. Yes, there's no blood, but they got the music right and they got the sound right. And like for me, like coming from the arcade port, that was important. Like I could accept the trade-off for the blood. And then Mortal Kombat 2, they finally had all that good stuff in, which
yes, Mortal Kombat 2 on Super Nintendo. Holy crap. Let me just say this. You know about this. You know about this. And I gotta say, anybody that was around from that time, guys, if you think it, like drama, like video game related drama, you don't know video game related drama until you hear kids fighting about which console got Street Fighter 2 and which console got the best Mortal Kombat. That playground fight was brutal. That was some savagery that took place, because when Street Fighter came to the Super Nintendo, it was a year before it came to the Genesis. It was a long time, so long that it kind of, I mean, it was kind of old news by the time it came out. But the people bought the Super Nintendo just for Street Fighter 2. And the same thing was true for the Genesis with Mortal Kombat, because I understand what you're saying. Super Nintendo version had all that stuff, but it was a tough. It was tough to fight that. Hey, my Mortal Kombat has the blood. It was tough to fight that.
Yeah, it was.
When you're 13, 12 years old, and the other kid is, hey, look what I got. The blood version of Mortal Kombat. What do you got? What is that? Sweat? What is that? What are you doing? Are you even playing Mortal Kombat at that point? And then they're like, oh, okay. But I had Street Fighter 2. What do you got on your Genesis over there? What is that? Street Smart? What is that? That's not Street Fighter 2.
Well, the other big thing that messed up on Street Fighter 2 was this, like, the sound. All the sound samples are just god awful. Like, I don't know.
Oh well, but for that time, it was really cool.
Yeah, no. I mean, like, on the Genesis, like, if you want, like, Sega Lord X, he did a comparison. Like,
for the Genesis.
Yeah, like the Super Nintendo. They were, because I think they were pulled from the arcade, but for some reason they didn't do that with the Genesis, and it sounded like the Genesis. It sounded like they're going through a squawk box or.
Unfortunately, that was the unfortunate thing about Sega. Like, they could do great voice samples. There was tons of games that had great voice samples, but there's these high-profile games that the voice samples are god awful, like Strider, and like you said, Street Fighter 2, and you're just like, what the hell? Altered Beast came with the Genesis when it launched, and it had great voice samples.
Yeah.
It's so weird. Like, they were more than capable of doing it. Same thing with the TurboGrafx. There's a bunch of games like that, just the voice is like blah, 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 and you're like, what the hell is it saying? I got better voice samples on Berserk on my Atari 5200. Like,
great points, because in retrospect now you come to find out, like, with all these systems, that it was all down to the developer. Like, if they screwed it up and they didn't fully utilize the hardware for whatever reason, because they were either lazy or had deadlines, and it was just like, like, it was just like shocking. Like, man, these systems could do so much more, and then they, when they could. That's why, like, I got the Dreamcast, like Soul Calibur. I remember, like, that was, like, fantastic, and then I kind of, like, expected all other games to be like that. I mean, don't get me wrong, Dreamcast had some of the good stuff. Where you're like, oh, how come everything doesn't look like?
Man, what a great launch that was. I was able to get a Dreamcast at launch, and you talk about, like, next gen before next gen. That was, I mean, that thing had online, built-in modem. It had, 60 frames per second games like you're talking about that looked absolutely like the arcades. It was amazing. The Dreamcast. I think
that was cool.
I think we all kind of, as a community, still mourn the loss of the Dreamcast, because we just felt like it had so much potential and it never really got.
It did.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, what was so great about it? I kind of felt like it was like the modern generation Neo Geo, that you felt like you had the arcade.
Yes.
At home, and then when you found out that they were selling them for $200, that they costed $250, well, you can try to recoup money for sales, but then, like, what was, like, Shenmue? They invested something like $100 million. I don't know, some insane amount of money, and and then that's when it went down. Like you said, they made a lot of mistakes. But, and I hate to admit this though, so there was the time then the Dreamcast that came out, loved it, and then I kind of like when PS2 was starting to come out around then I kind of felt like shamed. I kind of felt like dumb, like, why did I go with this? I should have gone with the. And then I remember getting the PlayStation 2 later on when you could finally get them. But then I kind of felt like that shame, like, man, I should have gone with with Sony and all that. But yeah, definitely crazy times, and it's weird because we come from that, like, unique era where we lived through all that. So that's why now, like, when you have, like, younger people get into retro gaming, I think it's great. But it's just but for us, like, we lived through those experiences, so it's just.
Absolutely. I think it's wonderful that younger people are discovering retro games, and they're getting so many retro inspired games that come out for modern consoles. There's an aesthetic to the older games that, if they're good, they're just good, and they stand the test of time.
Yes.
And it's nice that young people have that. They didn't go through what we went through. That wasn't. I mean, for us, when Super Metroid came out, that was the pinnacle of technology. You're like, holy crap, that's amazing. I can't believe that. And now you look at it and it just has that charm to it. It's
Mhm.
a different kind of appreciation, but I'm so glad that they care at all. I'm glad
Exactly.
they even care.
That's what amazes me because like we didn't have a choice to play anything else. And
Right.
now in this day and age, when you have the fact that they would choose and get into that
Yeah.
is just it's just incredibly awesome. Of course, the only problem with that is there are people like who, of course, like any community gatekeep, and for some reason, they think like unless you're playing on a CRT or unless you grew up with it, you have no business talking about. It's like, come on, who cares? It's like we need if our younger generation doesn't get excited about these games, and then they die with us.
Dude, yes,
you know what I mean.
we have to be very careful as a community about restricting what like running people off. I worry about that because people that see us on YouTube, we're representing the community that talks about this stuff and loves this stuff, and I do worry that like the people that are more gatekeepy or the people that are more like hostile, are going to run off the young people and they're not even going to be interested, and it's going to affect the appreciation of retro gaming into the future. I do worry about that kind of stuff. I think we kind of have a responsibility, and I know it sounds like old man with his responsibility. What is this? But it's stuff I worry about.
Although the funny thing
it's a
is,
point, though. I mean, that is 100% a point that it's maybe even cliche to say or think about, but it is, like it is our job almost as stewards of this stuff to make sure that people actually realize that like, hey, this is a thing. I mean, think about it. Like we're now the old storytellers, right? Like this is our digital campfire here that we have to pass this stuff on. Because you're right. I mean, stuff like this will get forgotten. I mean, heck, even in our generation now, there are thousands of games that just are gone.
Yeah, absolutely.
And unless somebody gets into some garage somewhere where somebody knew that there was that disc and it magically still works, you're never going to get it back. So.
Right. And it's not just games. I mean, that's why there's like a lot of movies like Forever Trapped in VHS and all that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And all that type of stuff. But no, it's definitely. So the funny thing is, I just had a thought like, should I only live like maybe someday, if so, let's say if maybe there are one or two generations that mainly care about. There could be a silver lining. Like, let's say I outlive everybody. I get to be 100, and I'm like, yes, I can now buy a Neo Geo AES. Like I can buy it for like $50 because nobody cares about it. You know what I mean? Like, before you die,
that's gonna happen.
It's like you get buried with it in your coffin or something. That'd be crazy. I don't know. It just kind of made me think of that. Like, maybe, who knows, right? Or maybe it'll be super.
What I worry about for me personally is I'm kind of a, how do I say this? I have to be careful because I'm kind of a snob, and like I like what I like because I had that experience when I was younger. So I want the original console, and I want the CRT, and I want the real controller, and I want that. And I have to be careful when I'm doing my videos and when I'm talking about this stuff that I don't become gatekeepy, and I don't be like, well, the real experience is this. And I'm like, oh, hang on, because we really do have to lighten up a little bit about like, look, emulation is fine. FPGA consoles, great. Evercade, awesome. I have no problem with people finding a way into this. Something that works for them, something they're comfortable with, something they can love and appreciate. I love that idea. Also, I'm really, I have some other concerns about like, I think it's great that we have so many options and that we have these things like Evercades and those arcade 1-up machines and Polymega and analog stuff. I think this is great, but I do have some concerns about things being designed to how do I say this, like exploit our devotion and obsession with the retro stuff. I am a little bit concerned about there's a certain aspect to the collecting that I think is a little bit too commercial, if that makes sense.
No, it does. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm not crapping on any company, and I'm not trying to say any company is doing something horrible. I'm just saying, like, I have certain concerns about how sometimes I see some things and I'm like, that's a little too much. That seems like it's designed just to get as much blood out of that turnip as possible, you know, and I'm not really a big fan of that. But
cough,
again,
limited run game. No, I know what you mean. And see, and I think, like, for me, like, that's one of the things I really like about Steam or Valve as a company. I mean, listen, it's no, like, they market it because, you know, maybe they take a loss because they know you're going to buy games from them because they make it super easy. However, if you wanted to, you could buy it. You could load up the Epic Gaming Store. You could load up COG. You could even just use it solely as an emulation machine. You could, you know, like, the openness of it. Like, you could never give Valve another cent, and you could do whatever. So that's what I kind of, you know, not that any company is perfect, but at least they're kind of looking at it like, hey, we're not going to lock the system down. You can kind of do what you want. And that's why, and that's why I went with them, because I hadn't logged for, you know, before I got back into Steam, I hadn't logged in, let's say, like, in 5 years. And then I was able to, all my games were there, even games you could no longer buy from the store because I bought it at that time. I could re-download it. They don't charge you extra for cloud saves like Nintendo. So for me, for like a modern, like, non-retro console, I went with that because I'm like, hey, I can play all my indies, all my stuff will probably still be here as long as Valve doesn't go out of business. Probably, you know, because whenever I would get stuff like on the PS4 store, I would just think, okay, better have that game downloaded, because you never know. They've already, you know, they threatened to get rid of the Vita store. So that's the problem with a lot of modern companies like Nintendo with the Switch. Like, what are they going to, you know, what are they going to do about that? And
since you brought that up, and I have to be careful because I can get on a soapbox, and I'm not trying to have super hot takes. I try not to do that.
Yeah.
But, like, I have the you know, I have this thing, right? Everybody has some form of Switch, right? Mm-hmm. And I have that the Nintendo online service, right?
Yeah.
So I love my Wii U. I have my Wii U back over there, and I have a whole bunch of the older games, the virtual console games on my Wii U. And I bought them, and I have them. They're on my Wii U, and I can't buy them on the Switch. I can only have their service, and then so they've effectively made it to where when their service is over for this, those games are gone. And you couldn't have bought them to have on there anyway. So there's no retro community for that's ever going to exist. It's like Apple. You know how, like, Apple will set up their phones to stop working after a few years to where, you know, it's like, so there's no retro Apple community for phones. Like, that's not going to exist. I think that's so stupid. And when you buy something, you should have the right to buy. Like, if I want to buy those games, if you're going to put them on there, let me buy them. Give me an option to buy those games, you know?
So now you've addressed my main issue. So there's two concerns with that. Because for one, like, Nintendo has realized, I guess, there's more money in making people rent games. And I know, like, Ubisoft, and that's kind of my big concern, that in the future, you won't be able to actually own games. And that's why I feel like Valve is a good kind of, like, happy medium. But that's the one thing that irritates me the most about Nintendo. They have all these old good IPs and properties. If you could go to the store and you could buy their back catalog, their Marios and Zeldas, if they even put them up for $1 or $2 each, like they did on the Wii U console, they would make so much money. And the fact that they would shut all that down and shut down the 3DS, I'm like, why? Because then when they do that, everybody jailbreaks everything. Like, that's what I've done with my Wii.
Yeah, exactly.
You've got no choice.
If they make it impossible for me to buy their games, that I'd never understood that. Like, make it possible for people to give you money. If you're going to make it impossible, there's going to be
and that's kind of the secret sauce. I mean, Valve didn't start off with that way, but that's what they kind of did, like what Apple did with iTunes initially. Like, they make it so super easy for you to buy and install games, and that you don't even realize you're gaming on a PC with the Steam Deck. So they don't charge you extra for those things. And, like, Nintendo could kind of take a pay, like you said, make it easy for people to buy stuff. Why wouldn't you keep these older games if people are buying them? Because there is a real market.
Absolutely.
You know, and then it just kind of goes to the thing. You buy something digitally, you should be able to re-download it because there's no other physical copy.
I agree. This is my concern with games as a service. I don't know. Rich, you've got that newer Evercade, right? I
Yeah.
saw you do a video about that, but how is that? Like, do you find yourself playing on that pretty regularly? And how does it compare to like the Switch or something like that?
Oh yeah. So I mean, with the you're talking
you
about
got
the
one too?
EXP, right?
Oh, y'all both have these.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
That's
yeah, I mean, I play on mine probably more than the average person that would own an Evercade.
Yeah.
Because I mean, the exception of myself, Pete, Ed, and Crow, because we have a podcast we talk about it every Saturday, right?
Yeah.
So like we're all in.
Yes.
But even if it wasn't for the podcast, I'd still be playing this. Now, do I play? Full disclosure, do I play more on my EXP or more on my VS? Well, because I have my studio set up, I play more on my VS than my EXP. But every time I go somewhere, this is with me.
right.
This is my new, like gaming device over my phone, over a Game Boy, over a Switch, over any of that stuff, because it gives me what I want, which is the games that I'd like to play that you really sometimes you just can't get anywhere else. And that's kind of the cool thing about Blaze and the way that they curate, but it's the curation. It's the curation that really makes the difference. The device is very nice. It feels good. It performs well. It does all the things you want a handheld to do. But would it be just a matter of hardware? Evercade EXP versus a Switch versus a Steam Deck versus a iNeo, whatever. I mean, obviously, you're talking about devices that cost 3, 4, or 5 million more times than the Evercade itself. So obviously, there's some benefits in having a Switch over an Evercade or a Steam Deck over an Evercade because they just simply can do more. But there is something to be said about having, like a cool little device that just simply takes you back in time and gives you that retro fix. And
exactly. That's why I say with Evercade.
That's why I really think this thing shines.
Yeah, it's an experience. Like if you care about having carts and booklets and all, that's kind of the whole. And just like hearing the.
I do love cartridges.
That's the thing.
Yeah, I mean it's just so cool, and the way that they have their model too. It's like, I don't know. It's just
and they're $20 a pop, so that's how you can
Yeah.
kind of that's how you can justify. So like if they put up like a same like something digital, right? Like the Contra collection on Steam, there's no way that I'm ever going to pay like $20 for something like that, especially like where I could easily like emulate it and not getting anything physical. But on sale, I'll buy that for $3. For Evercade, it's $20. You get a bunch of cards. Like if I'm getting something physical, I know it's simulation. Obviously, it's not the real thing, but like it gives you the same. It gives you the same experience. But with it expensive as as retro gaming collecting is for me, it's like it's the one thing I can physically collect, and then for everything else, I have Steam Deck. It's kind of like a happy me. Like I'd love to be able to collect Grafx and all that other stuff, but probably like for one game would be like the cost of the handheld, depending on what I mean. Like it's just it's insane. Like if we teleported back to early 2000s, yes, then you could get stuff for like 5, 10,
Did you say
$10 and whatnot.
Did you say you never owned a 3DS?
No, I haven't.
Oh wow! Like
no.
I just want to say I love the 3DS, and you should get one at some point because
I agree. No, I agree with you because I love Game Boy. I love Game Boy Advance. And you can, because of Nintendo, you can jailbreak them. And I know you can play those emulated, but if you actually have the real hardware, you can have like the dual screen and all that. Well, I would love to be able to play.
The 3D effect is way better than you think. I mean, you've seen the 3DS, right? Like,
yes.
I have one of what they called the new 3DS, whatever. The last one they put out that was still 3D. And man, there's so many, like Sega put out all these arcade games and stuff that were like, they made them into 3D versions, and they're like Outrun and a bunch of, Thunderblade, Space Harrier, and it's phenomenal. There's not anything else that compares to that experience. So that's the only reason I suggest getting a 3DS, because you really can't emulate that 3D thing. It's really cool. But this, what I was going to ask you about this Evercade that you have, is this the newest one that they've put out? That they all have?
So the one Rich is showing you, the white one, that's the standard That's the standard. This one is the exact same, just it's black.
Oh,
It's just a
okay.
limited edition. But I mean, it's the same. It's the same hardware specs. It's just like any same kind of similar like the purple one behind me. That was pretty much the same thing as the original white one. Had a little bit better of an LCD, but this one is a big difference. Like the LCD on this one is like really good.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you can also play
So,
Tate mode, so you can for like
the
some of the
OG.
shooters.
Oh.
For some of the shooters, you can play it vertically, and like with the Steam Deck, you can't really balance it and
Yeah.
and do that. But you
That
can,
might be
you know,
tough. Yeah.
yeah. And
Have,
you can do that. But like me and Rich like a lot of it too for discovery, even though something like the latest like C64 collection, while that might not be my cup of tea for all those games, I have fun going through discovering that. I usually find like on every Evercade collection, you can at least find like a few games that make it worth it for the $20. You know what I mean? So that's kind of the thing. Like Blaze was smart for their pricing. Like the EXP, it's $150. So and you get a game. So yeah, it's more expensive than some of the Chinese handhelds, but it's not like as expensive as or way up there. But you're getting a system that can play legit stuff in carts. So that's what I tell people. It's kind of funny. Like in my channel, the Evercade Effect, like that kind of is like the Evercade Effect. Like if you want to kind of like recreate that experience and you like discovery and all that, that's kind of what you're paying for the experience. Like sure, you could go out and source all these ROMs and everything, but anybody who's done emulation, like you have the Netflix effect of like 20,000 games and what do you play? So it's the curation and discovery and the physical thing that they're that you're paying for, which is a lot of fun for us.
You guys really know about this. I'm really very ignorant. I've asked you guys about this before. I remember I was in one of y'all's chats, and I find the Evercade fascinating. I just for some reason it's one of those things I haven't really learned a lot about. So I got another question, and I don't know if you guys can answer this or not, because I think you kind of alluded to maybe not being able to really talk about some stuff. But is there something new coming? Are they planning on maybe a newer like an Evercade that takes things like the next gen of games?
Something funny like that you mentioned that, because this was the latest console. So what's interesting, and Sean kind of talked about this on Evercast. So he was kind of saying like when they came out with this, people were wanting more portable devices that they could bring everywhere. And then like the Steam Deck, kind of changed that, where like people, it's a bigger device, and kind of other like bigger like Chinese knockoff handhelds. Like people, like for me, I like to play my portable devices around the house. I like to be on the couch with my wife, maybe in between things. Like because when you're locked into a console and a TV, it's more difficult to socialize. When you have a portable like on the couch, you can. I don't know. It makes it more easier to kind of like socialize and not divert your attention. And so he was saying that maybe like in 3 or 4 years, the next gen console might just be like one with a bigger screen that might do like those higher end console. Of course, nothing's set in stone, but he kind of teased that. It kind of depends on the market. Like who knows? In 2 or 3 years, people may or may not be looking at that. Because my take is that, and you touched on this earlier, that like game like 2D pixel art like stands the test of time. And I think like that's why like people love the Saturn so much, even though it does have 3D games. They have like so many good 2D games. And even if you look at like some N64 or PlayStation games like that are 3D, like they really don't, they really don't hold up as well. So for me, maybe the old man of me speaking, but I love like 2D art. I lose more interest in games once they become like 3D. Like, and that's why I haven't played like much of like the later 3D Zeldas. Maybe I should, but there's just something special about 2D art. Like it doesn't, I don't know. It doesn't really go out of date, just.
Yeah, I agree. I remember feeling like we had reached like the pinnacle of gaming, and then they took it right back down when they started with the polygons, because like it was like 2D art and graphics and everything had reached this level that was so awesome with like Super Nintendo and Saturn and stuff like that. And then it was like, all right, now here's these crappy 3D polygons that barely look like what we think they should be, and here you go, enjoy. And we're like, what? It took a while for that to sort of take hold. I mean, now I look back on some of that stuff and I kind of appreciate it more, but definitely I felt like there was a huge rift that separated what we had come to expect and then what we were getting right after that. It's very strange. Time.
Yeah. So what's interesting, like with AAA games, why for me, I kind of feel like AAA games have kind of gone the way of some movies where they spend a lot of money in graphics on graphics and everything. But because of that, like I feel like they kind of lose like the essence, like the story, the game, the game mechanics. Like you look at something like Pac-Man that looks like very simple, it's easy to play, but difficult to master, right? Like we've gone like so far away from that, and then games now come out and they're riddled with bugs, but people are willing to pre-order and we have a generation of gamers they've never like owned an Atari 2600 or any earlier system, so they don't have appreciation for the evolution.
Yeah,
so,
no, absolutely.
And that's why for me, like, I love indie games, like a great example of like something like Stardew Valley, for example. Like, I would have loved to have that back in the day. Of course, the hardware could never do it. It's in the same line of graphic. My daughter loves playing that on her phone. I've spent a few hundred hours, on Steam for that. And the great thing is, like, the developers never charged for any updates. Kind of like how it used to be, like you buy the game. But even some things like Dead Cells, for me, I love my roguelikes. I love that 2D art style. I'm fine with that. Like the Castlevania DLC, that was like $10. And but it wasn't just, pay to unlock these weapons or pay for this. It was actually like new content. Like, I'm fine with DLC if it extends the life of a game, not like unlock super weapons or like they did with the Resident Evil 4, where like you used to be able to use cheat codes like on the Wii and GameCube versions, and now you could pay to unlock the like that stuff is stupid. So I don't know. It's kind of a weird way that we've gone for gaming microtransactions. Like you said, we could get on our soapboxes. And all right, DJ Game Studios. Oh. So we are at the hour and a half mark. So before I forget, there is always a question. There is always a question. Well, that we just one question that we ask all our guests, because and I know we've talked a lot of stuff, but it's kind of the question is, what would you say is maybe like, and I'll give you my answer to kind of make it more clear. Kind of like the game that defines you. Would you say when you had like kind of like an aha moment or something that kind of like changed your experiences either with gaming or as a person? It doesn't even have to be a game that you like. And for me, it's like, I always reference like the original Legend of Zelda for Nintendo, because when I first saw that, nothing like it existed. Like, I didn't know about like your Ultimas or any of those other, like, I didn't really play many of those other PC games, but you were like, hey, you're dropped in a world with no help. Go ahead and figure it out. Maybe you can bomb here and unlock that cool. So for me, that's, that kind of like opened my eyes to a lot of things. So we always like to ask, like, what would you say would kind of be that game, kind of like that game? It was like that's moment.
That has got to be Phantasy Star for the Sega Master System.
Ooh,
because
Rich perked right up.
Because I had never seen anything like that, especially not on an 8-bit system. And when I fired that thing up for the first time, like, I didn't play RPGs. I didn't play JRPGs. I played all kinds of other stuff, but I didn't even know anything about JRPGs. And there was no way I could stop playing Phantasy Star. Like, from the moment you start playing that game, you're like, oh my God, these graphics looks like a Genesis game. You're like, what is this? Because I didn't get a Master System until the Genesis was already out. So I was behind on everything. But when I got a Master System, that I had to have Phantasy Star, because I saw that game in the Sears catalog, and I was like, I don't know what this is, but this looks really cool, and I have to have this. So I got Phantasy Star, and when you go in that first dungeon and it starts going past you in 3D, you're just like, I ran and got my brother and had him come back and look, and I was like, what is this? How is this happening? And then you run into these enemies and they're full animations, and the music was good, the story was good, the gameplay, like I said, never played JRPG, and that started this lifelong love affair, as they say, with me and the JRPGs. And so Phantasy Star, absolutely, that game is the paradigm shift for me as sort of a casual gamer who likes a lot of different stuff but doesn't really get into it that much, to an obsessive JRPG nut who then went on to love the TurboGrafx and the Saturn and all these other systems that have such great RPGs, and Super Nintendo, we were talking about earlier. My God.
Yeah.
I mean,
see, dude, that's awesome, because that's again another underappreciated system that like we couldn't buy anywhere. Because for me, when I first heard about Phantasy Star 2 for the Genesis, I was like, wait, where's Phantasy Star 1? I didn't, like there wasn't one for. Then I didn't. Oh, okay, it's that was actually one of the smart times where Sega did actually continue, one of their franchises. No, but that's that's awesome. But yeah, the Super Nintendo is an RPG machine. And since we did bring that, like for me, when kind of like looking back to my childhood playing all those games, like for me, like Final Fantasy 3 was one of my all-time favorite RPGs, because the first time you go through and beat it was like, I don't know, maybe 70, 80. It was like, it was like a ton of hours exploring it. But once I beat that game, it's maybe one of the few games that I played where I was like, okay, I want to start that back from the beginning. Like I've like never been able to capture that, and that's because they did a brilliant thing. Like halfway through the game, when the world
you're talking about 6, Final Fantasy 3, 6,
yes,
whatever.
Yes,
okay,
yes, exactly. Yeah, Japanese 6, R3. Yeah, you know, you basically have like you had like a huge party, and you could make your own party, and you could mix it up with the characters, and so it had like so much replayability. But yeah, all those even like your secret of manas and all that.
Yeah,
like, God, there's so many.
Final Fantasy 6 is my other huge. Oh my God, I played through that game. I don't know how many times.
Yeah,
and the first time you start that game, it was like, oh, games could be like this.
Yeah.
Like that was the first time I saw a game do something like a movie, and I was like, oh
yeah, that opening scene.
It was, I mean, just brilliant.
Yeah, and the story, like with like the whole thing about like the espers and people using them for their power, and so like it was just amazing. Like here we have these like little 16-bit graphics, and they made you care about them, like like watching a movie or something. You know what I mean? Like it invoked those emotions, and the ghost train, and we could, it's just, and even like Final Fantasy 2 before that was still good, a great step up from 1, but but still like. There's just something about 3, like 2 was maybe a little like the boss fights were a little bit harder, but 3, like the storyline and Chrono Trigger, even though it was short, you could go back and do, you know what I mean? Like there were just so many things. Yeah, I loved having those like 1 or 2 RPGs every year that just nailed it, and that was just kind of sad. I remember when everything went to PlayStation, it was like if you want that, you had to buy a PS1.
Well, we got screwed, man, because all the best. Not all the best, but so many amazing RPGs never came over here. And thankfully we've gotten a lot of translations now, but there was so many. I mean, when I finally saw Tales of Fantasia, I was like, what? Like, Bahamut Lagoon.
I was going to say Bahamut Lagoon. Tales of Fantasia, is that part of the Tales of Symphonia series?
I don't think so.
That was another good JRPG. Like I love that.
Oh
on
my God!
On the game, like on the GameCube. But yeah, like the Dreamcast.
Tales of Fantasia on the Super Nintendo is.
I need to check that out.
Amazing. Like it's fantastic.
I need to check that out.
Yeah, it's really good.
Like Star Ocean, we never got the.
You know what? I got a cartridge of the English translated Star Ocean, and I'm gonna play through it. I just haven't gotten around to it. I was like, you know what? I have to have this. So. I actually had it made, and I was like, it's a Super Famicom card.
Hey,
that's awesome.
There's nothing wrong with bootleg, so you can't really see the logo. But with this,
I don't have no problem. Play these games. That's all I'm saying. Play these games
for Game Boy Advance. So the funny thing is, as you know, like I have like the original Tetris and all that, but they stick out too much. Like off of Etsy, this dude made flash carts, and he put the Game Boy and the Game Boy Color versions of it. Versions of them on there, and then actually he put the patch version of the original Game Boy. Like someone made a patch where you could like save high scores and all that, so which is kind of funny because I wanted something where I could play the main Tetris games, whip it out. Of course, doesn't have like a nearly good screen, but yeah, I think it's neat. Like those unofficial remakes, like Earthbound 3 is another one. Like someday I would love to play that. I mean, yeah, there's as long as the people you're getting it from aren't charging you like insane prices, like I think remakes, whatever you want to call it, replication cards, they're fine as long as people advertise them as that. And of course, if they're translated, like people like us are in the know. But like sometimes there's some stores that, like they'll try to like sell like something like a Super Mario 3. Like really, it's like
as long as people know what they're buying, buy whatever you want. Like have fun,
exactly. But see, that's really neat, though, because something like that with a translated version, like we never had that in the U.S. unless you have something like, that's what the Polymega is neat. But again, that's another expensive, difficult option. But this way, you can pop that in original hardware, and you can have that experience. So yeah.
The problem with the Polymega though was it doesn't take flash carts, and it doesn't have an SD card. So it would be more difficult. It would be, I don't know. I don't think it would actually solve your problem because you're still going to have a cartridge of something.
Yes. Yeah. No, you'd have to have the kind of like what Rich is going to do with the Sega Saturn games. You have that, and then you find the IPS patch, and then it patches.
That's why I'm actually sticking with the CD base module and not necessarily expanding to the other modules, until such a time as they give a module for something that I have a vast collection of. Like if, for example, they were to say, all right, well, here's here's our new module. We gave you the N64s, the new ones coming out. You've got Genesis, Super Nintendo, NES, Famicom, all that kind of stuff. We're going to take it all the way back, and we're going to have this ultra module for the second generation. Bam, money down immediately. Goodbye.
Right.
Thank you. Just give it to me. Because the only other thing that I have a bunch of carts for still to this day is Atari and Intellivision. Yeah. And if they were to put out a module for either of those consoles or one that does both, done. That's immediate. Because having the ability to then just get all that in a nice interface, and you have nice controls, and it's nice new hardware that reads all your stuff. That's chef's kiss right there. So,
sure would have been nice to have had a way to play Intellivision games with a wireless controller that had functioned like an Intellivision controller. That would have been nice.
Yeah, I mean,
if anything like that had ever been planned, that would have been amazing.
Right.
Yeah. Well,
if we had another 2 hours, yeah.
I mean, but man, yes. But also, yes, that's the thing, though.
But speaking of which,
always and forever.
Evercade does have 2 Intellivision collections. The first one I really like, and that's what else is kind of neat about the Evercade is some games that maybe you'd have to spend the time mapping all those controls, and it's
that's cool.
It is very cool. These, and the fact that this one also has Princess Quest. They got in and did some homebrews on these carts. And if you have both of them and you put them in the Evercade VS, you get another homebrew. They unlock, they unlock secret games if you have 2 of the same collection. Sometimes, so if you've got Gallico Arcade 1 and 2, you put them both in. They're supposed to have 10 games apiece, but it'll be 21 games. Because the next it'll unlock on the console because it's part of the firmware of the VS.
Yeah.
It's a really neat feature. Yeah. So. Yeah.
I was gonna say if you're wanting to get it, if you're I probably would almost recommend, unless you're wanting a portable, recommend the VS, because if you buy it retail off of Amazon, what it's like, was it $120 or $130? You get a controller and you get the 2 arcade carts. But if you look on look on eBay, you may be able to find it cheaper. But if you kind of want to get your feet wet, or the OG white handheld that comes with the Atari Collection 1, I think was Funstock was selling those on sale. I know those.
Yeah, I think they were trying to blow them out. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean,
if you just want to dip your toe into the waters and see if Evercade is something cool you want to get into, or if it's a novelty without spending too much.
Yeah. I have thought about it. I don't know. I have to. I have so much stuff.
Yeah, there's too much things to play. Exactly. Yeah. The one thing I'll tell you though is that once you start getting into the carts and you get for me, I got they had the original pack with 1 through 10, and then there were a few elusive ones that were in the middle that I couldn't get. Once I started to get caught up with 14 or 15, and then I was hooked. And so then for each one, then I had to get it. Part of their marketing genius is that they're numbered. So that's kind of what you're saying about collecting. So it's once you kind of get deep into it, then you're in it.
Yeah, I got you.
So just be forewarned.
I get it, man. And my thing is, I'm really not. I know it's going to sound really strange for me to say this. I'm really not a collector. I buy stuff to play it. I'm not. I don't really have trophies. I mean, I guess they sort of are, but I don't. I sold all my Genesis cartridges, and I was like, I'm fine. I got a Mega Everdrive. As long as I can play the games, that's what I care about. But I do have to admit, it did sting a little bit to get rid of 100 and something cartridges for the Genesis. That was a little.
No, I hear you. There's some nostalgia on some things. For me though, the ultimate thing to own, and so kind of how I said I'm mad at Nintendo for maybe not releasing older stuff. I'm mad at Neo Geo or SNK for them not actually releasing a mini AES console, not some of the other, not just a joystick, not just with a screen, because there's a lot of people out there that would have nostalgia. That's the closest we'd ever be able to own any type of Neo Geo. I don't even care if it had the modern, keep it with the AES BIOS on it. Put 50 of their best games and that, and have the joysticks and everything be in the the other controllers be like they're supposed, and I would be happy with that just for the nostalgia of like owning. But
I know we've gone for a while, but I just want to real quick. I did own an AES. I actually
Whoa!
I actually owned two
That's
of
awesome.
them. I owned one and I sold it, and then a couple of years later I bought another one, and I think I had like 6 or 7 games, and I reached a point where I knew I could no longer afford to continue building that library. And so what I ended up doing was selling everything, and I bought a really nice arcade stick for my PlayStation.
Ooh.
And I bought all the Neo Geo games on the PlayStation. And I'm like, I'll just play that way. The emulation's fine. I can live with it, because I knew there's no way, dude. I paid the last Neo Geo game I bought, cartridge, was Burning Fight. I found a special price at a local retro store. It was kind of a dinged up cart, and I still paid $200 for that cartridge.
Yeah.
And I said, I don't want to do this anymore. That's like, because I was looking like anything else I want was more than that. And I'm like, I was like, nah, these games are $7 on PlayStation. Like, I'll do that. And I've been happy with that.
Yeah, that's an example of where you really have to pay for original hardware. At one point, I owned somebody made this is going back to like early 2000s. Somebody they took like the single slot MVS, and it didn't have any like type of nice case. They just they mounted it like on acrylic. It was like the Neo BIOS like 3.0. And so that would, I think and this was I think I paid like $150 for that. Like I said, going back to early 2000s, but you could get MVS games for 20, 30, like 50 was considered to be expensive. And I remember I had a few of them, but it's kind of funny because playing something like King of the Fighters, like 95, I enjoyed those. And I came with the real joystick you could plug in. And then I remember the actual D-pad, $30 off of Amazon, but I think at some point, because I bought those cases you could even try to put them in and all that, but because the thing was a little bit janky and all that, I did end up selling. But what was nuts though, I think I got double for everything. I remember some dude so somebody made some cases you could put them in. Let's say if I got them for $10 each, I ended up selling them for 2 or 3 times to some dude in Germany off of eBay, and then the carts still held their value. So I know what you mean, but a part of I wouldn't mind having a modern day MVS. And maybe a few cards, as long as you could. But still, though, even if those were $100, that would be kind of a lot. I don't know. I'm kind of torn because then, to your point, let's say you did buy get a Neo Geo for $500, and you did get let's say a King of the Fighters, maybe World Heroes. Those are cheaper games. Then maybe you have $500 or $600. I assume that would probably be cool for a while.
Yeah.
But then to your point, you can't really to do it right. You'd want to get the flash cart for that, which. That's $500. So that's
and the flash carts are not reliable, and you might actually. They have a lot of issues in the Neo Geo space.
Well, I should say not the I'm sorry, not those. Yeah, no, you're right. Those I meant the EverDrive, the one that Castlevania games makes, where you can put in an SD card.
That's what I'm getting at.
You're saying that. That wasn't reliable. Ooh.
These $400 or $500 cartridges. There's voltage issues with them being exactly the right voltage, and over time, there's been problems. I'm not saying they all have this problem, but there's a lot of people that have told stories about this. And if you put $500 in a flash cartridge in a EverDrive, basically, if anything happens to that EverDrive, that's your whole library. That's all your games.
Yeah.
You're gonna buy another flash cartridge, and then what? If there is a voltage issue, are you going to do damage to your console? And it is a concern for Neo Geo, because the Neo Geo is arcade hardware, and that stuff's very finicky. Like when I had Burning Fight, this is another reason I got out of it, because I got out of the Neo Geo stuff. Because when I bought Burning Fight, the outside of the cart was a little weird, but when I played the game, there was a couple of spots in the game where there would be a little bit of artifacting on the screen. And I cleaned the cartridges as much as possible and cleaned my system, and it would still be there. And I was like, I wonder what that is. And people started to tell me stories about, I had a game that started out that way, and then it got worse and worse. And eventually the game went out. It was all these horror stories that you hear. And I'm like, I have to get out of this, because can you imagine if I spent $500-$600 on a game and it dies and kills my system, I mean, this is finicky arcade hardware. This is not like a Genesis or a Super Nintendo or something. It's very different. I know it seems the same because it's like, well, they're cartridges and they're boards, but
you would think, but yeah,
it is different, and the voltages are weird too. So, like I said, that's the issue with. I just did not trust. I didn't trust the MVS adapters. People told me things about that.
I've heard those are flaky. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a bunch of horror stories, and you're just like, this is a scary place to be. And I just didn't feel comfortable in there. So, but the AES was awesome.
I bet. Yeah.
It was really cool. I will say though, those arcade sticks they give you with the AES, they're not that great. They do have micro switches. They're nice. But the stick itself is like real, like hollow plasticky, and the buttons are not like real arcade buttons. So that was also disappointing. But
yeah, it's different. Like the one, like the ball that I had to crack it. But when I got like their D-pad, that clicky D-pad, like for the Sega, for the Neo Geo CD, like that was great. Like that, I loved using that.
Yeah.
I loved using that. Like on the MVS, could do all the special moves like that.
I've heard that's really good. I didn't have one of those. I've heard that's really good. Yeah.
But yeah, that's what's funny. Like all the bunches, but to your point, like when you have so much money tied up, like in retro, more importantly, when you have like one game gets to be like $500, yeah, that's ridiculous.
Yes, it is. How many are you really going to play a $500 game? Because every time you go to play it, you're going to be like, get in there. Okay.
Yeah, I know.
I know. I mean, some of the time I had a hard time with going in and out of even Golden Axe Warrior when I was playing that. Because it's not an inexpensive title, but and I'm playing it on a Retron 5 with a 3-in-1 adapter, so like I trust it a little more, I guess, if it was my Master System, but I don't have one of those anymore. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I feel you on that, but because that's just it's a nightmare. But even on that, like super expensive hardware and a super expensive game combo is like, I don't know, man. Yeah, that's some crazy stuff.
I got an EverDrive for my Master System, and I'm like, that's good.
Nice.
I sold all my Master System cart. The only Master System cart I did not sell is Phantasy Star. I sold everything else. Nice.
Yeah, and I've got so there's a lot of those in the bin that I'm like, it's a lot of this. I haven't done them yet, so I'm like, yeah. So,
but it's a great discussion. That's what you have to like ask yourself, like, do I have to own the physical copy necessarily of the game? And that's why, to your point, Rich, like I think you get to a point where you're selective, like, hey, Golden Axe Warrior has such significant nostalgia. Like, yes, I want to own, but I want that to be complete in box. So maybe some other stuff, not as much. You know what I mean? So I think that's what you kind of find, like over time. You kind of look at retro things, and you have to decide what do you need to have. Because for me, the funny thing is, like, when the limited edition, like, there's a whole thing where it was delayed and there was like a theft and all that. Like there was, I had to decide, like, did I want to buy the standard? I know like Rich did, because like that was his Christmas spread. Like, so for me, like luckily I was able to, kind of use up all my presents for this and get like the Steam Deck. But at some point, like I have to decide, like, how many more of the same handheld device do I want? Like I already, you know what I mean? Like I already have like 3 Evercade, like they all play the same game. So that's, so, you have to decide, like, how much like retro clutter do you want to have? Because everything takes up space and all that. So definitely it makes sense to downsize, like to collect the thing that you love. And even the funny thing is, when you watch, like, let's say channels like I know like Sega Lord X or John Hancock, they flat out and said, like, hey, I started like retro collecting 30 years ago. You know what I mean? And as a matter of fact, I think like even Sega Lord X at one point said like he hasn't bought any like retro games in 10 years because he's like, I have everything that I want and it's like so expensive. So I think that's how a lot of people are like, if you have it, then you're gonna, if you were smart enough to keep it. Unfortunately, I wasn't. Or if you do get stuff, it's like modern homebrew retro where you spend $50 and you get a complete in box game instead of like $500. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So that's why when you pulled up the CDRs to play, like, yeah, I don't blame you. I mean, you get the experience of playing on original hardware. You get the feel of putting in the disc, hearing it click. It's like, do you actually have to have the real thing? Maybe for some games you might, but no, I mean, I totally. But it's a shame though that there are people who would gatekeep and would like look down upon that, like you're pirating. It's like, well, no, I'm not, because you can't buy this stuff anymore. You get it from a second. You know what I mean? So
yeah. I understand. I mean, I know people. I understand because I can be snobby too. I know how that is, and it's just something that we have to, we have to be aware that we have these. I think of this as almost like an affliction that we have as somebody who was around for this stuff when it first was around. We want that, we want that thing that we originally had, and that's cool. But it can also be, we can be our own worst enemy. We can really push people away when we should be trying to draw people in, and so that's something to be aware of. It's something we all should understand that we're, just because we see things a certain way, and we have a certain preference and we have a certain idea of what we think is perfection and what we should achieve, we can't expect. That's ridiculous to expect, especially young people that never even knew about this stuff to have that same feeling. They're not going to have that, they're just not going to have that. It would be like expecting people to have film projectors in their houses,
Right.
Like, that's absurd. Nobody should have a film projector in their house.
So funny that you mentioned that, because for me, I like the way that like HDMI upscales, and I like seeing pixels. And sometimes, your point, like some gatekeepers will be like, well, there was, play the game as it was intended on a CRT, and it's like, well, that was the technology of the time. Yeah. And yes, you can't just take something like composite and plug it into an HDTV because it'll look like crap without an upscaler. But if you have something to upscale to meet the resolution, then it can look good. You can use, matter of fact, you can use like Retrovision RGB cables and you can get things just to your point, it all depends what people like. And then what I want to tell people is, hey, remember, like there were LCD back then, like Game Boy and all the handheld systems had it. So stop it,
Yeah, I mean, like, I like my CRT. I love the way it looks. But yeah, I mean, I've got this thing patched through, and it looks great whenever it comes through my Elgato. It looks fine. I've got it through this is a RetroTink 2X Pro coming through my Elgato, and that looks great.
Oh,
so
nice.
Play it either way. Play it the way that you'll play it. Play it how you can play it. I just want people to play the games.
Oh.
Uh-oh.
I think it might have his virtual cam might have crashed.
Yeah. Huh.
Oh, he's back. You're back.
Okay.
It's all good.
Yeah, so that's you have to have, and that's why, like, one of the things when I did look into Evercade is just to try to like get all that. It's an investment, the hookup, so to try to get like an HDMI Super Nintendo, you know what I mean? So then you have to just, because for me the whole thing for me was with some stuff, I'm like, if I do really want to play that stuff, I could emulate it, but I'm not emulating it. And for me, it was just kind of, well, I love all, like, the retro games. I wanted something different. I wanted to play new retro stuff I hadn't played before, because there's kind of like that certain period where you do play all that stuff, like all your Marios and stuff, and you're like, okay, that's cool, but now I'm kind of bored of it. And so that's why, like, so like the 3DS, like that, maybe I just need to break down, load EmuDeck, at least play that on my Steam Deck, because there are like a lot of Marios and Zelda, like there are other games that weren't available, anything else. And then if I really do like that and I want to maybe play it, because that system is kind of unique where you have the dual screens, then then it's like, then you could find one cheap and jailbreak it and all,
Yeah, absolutely.
And kind of all that stuff. But yeah, that's why we always say, like, like, we don't really care how anybody plays it as long as you enjoy it. We don't claim any other way is better than others. No, the funny thing is, because like with Evercade, like, me, Rich, Pete, and Crow, we're all like really passionate about stuff. And there have been times in Evercast where I'm like, this game is garbage, and someone's like, we'll be in the chat, will be like, actually, I have fond memories because I'm really nostalgic, and I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. So yeah, that's why sometimes you do have to be careful, and that's why I try to remind myself, hey, just because I don't like it, I don't want to take that enjoyment away from somebody else.
Right.
That's the other. You're right, and that's what we have to be careful about too. Is this collective decision that this game is good or bad? Like, it seems like a lot of people get together and decide, oh, that's a bad game, and it's on the Angry Video Game Nerd, so everybody has to hate that game, or you know what I mean?
Right.
Yep. Like I love games that people hate. I love a lot of games that people hate. You know,
Mhm.
a lot of people don't like Altered Beast, and I love Altered Beast. You know, there's games like
I
that,
dig
that
it.
for some reason people just decide.
Well, I can
oh,
tell
this-
you, I can tell you why, because like Ultra Beast at the time, like it was a side-scrolling beat 'em up,
Yeah,
and it was fantastic. So a lot of us like we have like a lot of like nostalgic memory, memories behind it. But even if you take that away, it's I remember kind of growing up, it was kind of cool to like for people to make fun of it back then. I don't remember anybody like hating on it, but it was it was the pack-in game and all that. But for the time, it was amazing. There was synthesized speech and all that. But yeah, I know. But see, what's interesting about that, like that's a great example of a game that does well in Japan. Like maybe like yes, you beat it really well, but I think for some people, like I think either you like arcade games or you don't. I think there's a certain group, like maybe people they don't like. Hey, I beat this game quickly, but did you enjoy the experience?
right.
That's kind of the whole thing. And so like Evercade, like they do have like the purple collections, which are just arcade cards, and some of them you get unlimited continues and you can start off. But it's fun being able to play through that, especially like as an adult.
Yeah,
And they have some game, but like the Topin collection, they do have some games where like you get 3 lives and that's it. And that's why I say we like to jokingly call old man mode. That's that's one of the neat thing with emulation is you do get your save state. So if you don't have the time to devote, you can go back. And that's what's weird when you do use something like Evercade or play emulation. Sometimes going to original hardware, you forget about those bells and whistles. I'm like, oh yeah, I can't create a save state whenever I want. But so there's pros and cons to
absolutely.
to everything. But yeah, it is. I know what you mean though. Like it's funny because the opposite effect can happen. Now you said like angry gamer will hate something, but then somebody, let's say like Metal Jesus, will say, "Hey, here's a gem," and it could be like a cheap game, and then now everybody discovers it. Now it becomes like more. There's like a rush. It becomes more expensive. So yeah, it's kind of weird though. I don't know. The gaming market is just I don't know. It's the retro market is just kind of funny what people will like. But yeah, people should play what they want and don't care about what anyone else says really.
100%, dude.
Sure.
You have a game that you love that nobody even knows exists, and it's one of your favorite games. Everybody has something like that.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
For me, the one thing like that defines like a bad game really is if it's not fun. And kind of what I mean by that is either something, let's say like Adventures of Bayou Billy, where that game the enemies are just like so grossly overpowered. Yeah. That you really have to learn that, or a game that just has bad play, like Controls are King that just has bad play control, to where the deaths feel unfair. Maybe that's what I would consider a bad game. That's just not fun, or it takes too much of a time.
It's so subjective, though.
Exactly, even that,
yeah. It's like people love Battletoads, and I don't like that game, and I know people love that game, and I just don't like it. But it's an example. Like there's games if you don't have a good time, you're not going to like. And that's really what it's about. So,
that's it. Yeah. I was actually just having that conversation with members of my own comment section on a video I did for the new Atari VCS. There was a beat 'em up that came out, and it is a little more leans into like the controversial because of the content that was involved was the thing that took me out of the experience. But then, there's all these people still actually to today are still watching that video. Like, oh yeah, actually I just picked up that game and, I didn't have any problem with it at all. I think it's a blast. And I'm like, well, it's great. I mean, I'm glad it's actually getting eyeballs.
Yeah. I added it to my Steam wish list. I was like, cool, man. I was like, I just watched the trailer. Like, that's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like, I'm glad people are enjoying it, but, it's just that, this particular game, it's a beat 'em up. But it has like a really hard-nosed story. And it's like the game's called Skinny and Franco. It's actually a modern take of it's like a modern sequel for a game that came out way back in the Amiga. It must have been a passion project because the art styling and the audio and even the gameplay itself very well presented. It really feels good. But it's like I kind of like say like if you had a game that was like a Streets of Rage, only written by the people that would write the first episode of an HBO series.
Wow.
So that's where we're going. And it hits you right away. Like, before you even start.
the Amiga is where that would come from. You're right. That community is like that. They're hardcore and yeah, absolutely. That's a computer. I did a little bit mess with an Amiga, but it wasn't for gaming. It was for video editing stuff.
Oh, okay,
but
yeah.
I always wanted to have one because the games they would show in the magazines for the Amiga were like nothing you'd seen, very good stuff.
So not to plug Evercade here, but the next computer collection, they're actually finally releasing the first.
I'm
Amiga.
finally going to be able to get to experience some of that stuff. Yeah.
Yes.
They're bringing a lot of the Team 17 Amiga games.
Yeah, the Alien.
That's pretty cool.
Alien Breed and like that kind of stuff.
Yes.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen they have those little Amiga minis or whatever that they're trying to.
Yeah, the A500 mini. Yeah.
Yeah.
See, that's another. That's another option. See, for me, like when I like a younger me before marriage, before kids, like that would be something. I would probably love to tinker with that. Too much. But the thing, and that's why I always call like the dark side of emulation, because I've gotten to the point where like it's not even about like I've gotten to the point where it wasn't even about playing games anymore. It was just like, I want these thumbnails to look perfect. I want to look at everything. I want to explore. And then it's just like you couldn't stick with anything too much. So for me, like, having something narrowed down, kind of helps, because there's so much stuff out there, and it's weird. Like you can get too obsessively, into the stuff. And so that was kind of one, having like physical cards, even something like Burn to CD, like in a book, like at least that kind of helps you like narrow it down. But digital, a lot, like if I look at my Steam library right now, I have like over like 400 games, and like sometimes like you forget about all this stuff. So that's bad about digital.
I bought 90. I have almost 100 digital PS1 games on my PS3.
Ooh, nice.
But I had to stop because I'm ran out of games to buy for one thing, but it was like that's a lot. That's you get to a point where you're just like, okay, what are we doing?
Then again, like my only big fear with doing something is it's like you paid real money for that, and then what happens like when the PS3 store goes away, and if you can't re-download, it's like I would back all that. I know like in the PS4 you can back up stuff to a USB, like built into the software you can back it up to a USB, or I hope it would do the same thing, but that's kind of the fear with these modern consoles. It's like,
digital is always going to be a concern, no matter what you do. It's always going to be a concern. So that's something we all think about.
Yeah. But at least it's cool though, because it's like, hey, it's on a Sony console. You can relive the experience. You can plug it into HDMI. You don't have to mess with, it's like probably the easiest way you could play those games. So that's
Yeah. I have 2 PS3s because of that. That's stupid, but that's what we do, right? Sometimes we do stupid things because we love games.
I've got a terabyte drive in my PS3 Slim.
Nice.
It's a thing that happened.
I understand.
So, but all right. Well, I hate to be the guy that has to say the thing, but if I don't head out soon, I'm gonna just dip out while we're live.
So speaking of which, and before we do that, no pressure here. Going to put you on the solo layout.
Here, let me put this out.
What am I supposed to say? I don't know the thing.
Remove the bet. Oh, so first, if you want to say however, calling on retro gamers, however you want for our intro.
Okay, let me know when you're ready.
Yeah, no, go for it.
All right. Calling all retro gamers. One more time.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Calling all retro gamers.
Nice.
Awesome.
That's good take.
And then if you want to give me a Retro Kill -9.
I don't even understand what you just said. What did you say?
I should say Retro Kill -9.
Retro Kill -9? Okay.
Hey, you said it. No, but you can say it.
I said the thing. Retro Kill -9.
Awesome.
Awesome. That's the best.
So just to give you real quick, so you don't think I'm more of an insane person. So when I went on YouTube, I used Kill -9 as my real name is Ed, obviously, but so that Kill Dash 9, you know, it's kind of a mouthful. Didn't really stick. You know, kind of added the retro to make it to fit in. But in short, like if you see like the word like KILL space -9, it's a Linux command to kill a process in one hit.
Okay.
So it's kind of, you know, like for like PvP, it's kind of.
I got you.
But I kind of spell it retro kill dash. Anyways, on one of my YouTube videos, I was like, you know, welcome to Evercast. I am retro kill dash 9. I kind of said it like that, and Ian Hobbies kind of made it stick. Like he really he started going retro kill dash 9, and then I would just start saying it, and so, and then Rich kind of turned it into a thing of me being summoned, and so I've made other clips of me just kind of doing that. And so it kind of became just a weird little cult thing within our like Evercast channel community. So whenever we have like a special guest on, if they for fun, we just get that. And so sometimes what let me see here if I see
we have to have them in here.
No one is summoning me, but just to show you, like here's somebody you'll recognize.
Retro Kill Dash 9.
And then Nick even did one.
Retro Kill Dash 9.
Oh,
and then and then I might do something like combine them all and do something like this.
Kill Dash 9.
Yeah. I just blew your mind. And see that one. Yeah. And see, because people were like, "Hey, you're like Randy Savage." So kind of because
you want me to do it like Randy Savage? I can do it like Randy Savage. You want me to do that?
Sure.
All right, we'll try that.
Oop, wait, that's me.
Yeah, no, Rich.
Hold on, I meant to do solo.
Okay.
Yeah, go for it.
All right, let me get warmed up for a second there. Retro Kill Dash 9. Yeah.
Dude, that was great because now I can do. Dude, that was epic because now I can do something with that because of this. Retro Kill Dash 9. Oh yeah.
Yes,
And what's kind of funny because like my wife was going out food shopping or something, and I told her, I'm like, you may not want to know why, but I just need some Slim Jims, like for a video. So yeah, it's just silly. Oh, and the other part of it too, he's not in here, but the fact that it annoys the hell out of Pete, and just like his reaction, it makes it more fun. The fact that he so dislikes it.
It's like, the best. Yeah, every Evercast, someone does it in the chat. So like, and Ed's got like 20 of these. So you just never know what you're gonna get. So we're all in the thing, and we're all waiting for it, and we hit it. And every single time it comes back to the panel.
Let me do one more. I'm gonna do one that's very different, like totally different, like not even like that at all.
Okay, sure, go for it.
Retro Kill Dash 9. How about that? Or
Retro Kill Dash 9.
I don't know. Something like that. I don't know. What do you think?
I think
that's all.
These are all great.
No, you're giving me more content, so that's awesome.
This is fantastic.
Yeah, and that's why
I could do Lion-O. Remember Lion-O from Thundercats?
Yeah,
you could do that one. Ready?
Sure. You do Lion-O?
Yeah,
sure. I love your enthusiasm. You're the first one that's asked to do this many of them.
All right. First, you have to get into the Lion-O voice. Retro, Kill Dash 9. I don't know. Oh, Snarf. I can do Snarf. Retro Kill Dash 9. Oh.
Dude, that's great. You may get your own. You may get your own reel. You're just doing it the different.
Oh my goodness.
I think that yeah. Pete will be like, "Wow, somebody willingly actually wanted to do this."
So you think you're a Retro Kill Dash 9, do you? But I was born in the Retro Kill Dash 9. I don't know.
That's great. Yeah, we keep saying this, but at some point we're gonna update the calling all retro gamers.
Yeah, that's a my bad thing, because there's so many things that we want to do with like editing and putting together all like new things, and then it's like, oh, yeah, I'm gonna have time, and then no, it just it doesn't happen.
But
But
I
yeah,
promise
we'll
you, those retro Kill Dash 9s will go to.
Oh yeah, no, those
They'll go to a good
definitely.
cause. They'll go to a good
Yeah,
cause.
you'll see it on the next Evercast. So Ed's good with that. But
oh
all
man.
right. So yeah, let's
Retro Kill Dash 9. Retro Kill Dash 9. Retro Kill Dash 9.
Oh my goodness. All right, so
It's like after the show, I get like this link that's just like to a private link on your YouTube channel that has you like doing all these ones for a minute. You could do if you were to send that to me, I would make good use of it too. So,
man.
Understood.
So
otherwise you've given me some great material. Yeah, this was a lot of fun though.
no, this has been awesome. I think you actually saw you might have broken the record. I don't know if we've had a 2-hour Call the Retro Gamers guest show.
Well, one thing I can do is talk. So,
but it was awesome. Like it was totally awesome. But
yeah,
we are totally at the point though where if I do not go to bed now,
yeah, if you didn't say anything, just to put in perspective, we're having so much fun. Like I skipped dinner and didn't even I've forgotten about that I was even like hungry or or anything. So like Rich, if you didn't say anything, we'd be here till midnight. I forget it's like nearly 11:30 where you are in the East Coast.
Yeah, man. So
hey, I know how we can end the show. Imagine a raging waterfall pouring cold water down the mountain. The water will not stop. It just keeps flowing. Where is it all coming from? No one knows. The dam is about to burst from the water that keeps flowing. The white waters. Anyway. Yeah.
Oh my goodness, man.
You give me so much material for that. For a short and yeah, awesome.
So yeah, all right, guys. Do you guys have anything you want to plug real quick before we head out though?
No, I'm okay. I appreciate it. You guys are amazing. Thank you so much for having me on. I've watched your stuff before, and it's really great to finally be on here and get to probe your minds about the Evercade stuff, especially. That was it's a curiosity for me. I'm not yet in the trigger pulling mode, but I am in the examination investigation mode. And you guys have helped me with that, so I appreciate it.
We've done our job.
Cool. Yeah. So
well, don't say that. The whole internet. Oh, they said it was doing their job.
But yeah, I mean, as we also always say with our guests, doors always open. So if you ever hanging in on a random Thursday night when we do the show, you want to hop in and say hi, just let us know. It'd be awesome to have people just come on in and hang out again. Speaking of those kind of things, because you do like things like Phantasy Star and RPGs and all of those kind of things, I happen to be just starting a brand new series called Completion Quest over on my channel, where some of those episodes I'm going to be doing live, where anyone at all, again, if you're bored one day and you're like, oh, this guy's talking about video games, let me go over there and talk about video games too. Like, come on over.
Dude, ever since I met you in Philadelphia or wherever we were, Pennsylvania, ever since I met you, I was like, this is a cool guy. This is a really good guy. And
same.
And I thank you so much, both of you, for having me on here, for inviting me into your digital home. Hopefully, I hope y'all had a good time because I know I did.
Oh no, it was a blast.
We did. If Rich didn't say something, I lost track of time, space, in this dimension. That's
For sure.
The only way to tell time is by watching the raging waters slowly pouring down the mountainside. Anyway.
So, but yeah, guys. So, all right. I guess that's a show.
Yeah.
So that's pretty awesome. Don't forget, guys, too. Saturday morning, Evercast.
Yes.
Talking about all those spicy rumors.
Yeah.
That's gonna be a fun time. Plus, however else we're gonna be talking. We're gonna be talking about something. But normally it's gonna be we're gonna do this news, and then the chat's gonna go nuts, and then that'll be the show. So
pretty much.
I can't be Can't be mad about that because it's always an awesome time. So, all right, I guess with all that being said, thank you guys so much for being here in the chats. Thank you to Sai for being here. It's been awesome. And we will catch you next time on Calling All Retro Gamers. See you guys later.
Calling all retro gamers. This concludes our broadcast day. Click.